Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. A lot to talk about this Sunday, and every topic has to do with scandals erupting at every level of government. On the local level, people are calling for a criminal court judge to step down after his controversial posts, and there's internal strife among Shelby County Democrats after questions about whether their chairman should resign. On the state level, a scandal that now reportedly involves the FBI now calls for the Speaker of the House to resign after revelations about his chief of staff. Even the Republican governor saying it may be time. And on the federal level, history being made after a Memphis congressman is among those voting to place the U.S. Attorney General in contempt of Congress. Later, my one-on-one segment with Bartlett Mayor Keith McDonald. But first, let me introduce to you my roundtable for today. Susan Adler-Thorpe is a political consultant with Thorpe Communications and another political consultant and former city councilwoman, Tawan Stout-Mitchell here. Thanks both of you for being here. I don't know where to begin. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, though. Let's talk about the state scandal first, because that seems to be breaking new information almost by the hour here. And as we tape this on a Friday afternoon, the lieutenant governor is among those now who's weighing in, saying it is time for Speaker Glenn Casada to resign. In fact, he has said in a statement, I'll just summarize it here, it's a fairly long statement, but he just said, I would believe it would be in the best interest of the legislature and the state of Tennessee for Speaker Casada to vacate his office at this time. So on and on we go. There's been so much that has happened with this. I just came up with a short list on what some of the scandals as they started about a week ago. First, you had the lewd texts, including soliciting sex with interns. There were some racist texts. Then we learned that the assistant who, Mr. Casada's assistant in all of this, whose name is escaping me right now, Kay Cothran, he admitted to snorting cocaine in his state office. The Black Caucus has asked for an investigation into the framing of a civil rights activist. There's now allegations of eavesdropping going on, electronic bugging. The CBS station in Nashville saying that the FBI is looking into illegal activity in terms of arm twisting when it comes to the school voucher bill. And as I mentioned, Governor Lee now among those saying if Casada worked for him, he would ask him to step down. How do you think this is going to play out? Susan, I'll start with you.
Well, I think that Casada is under a tremendous amount of pressure. I don't know Mr. Casada, but the people of Williamson County elected him to represent them in an honorable way. He has the public trust, and he is obviously, to his own admission, he admitted that he sent some of these texts, that he has violated that public trust. He should step down. He obviously doesn't want to step down, but I ultimately think that he's going to be forced to step down. Sometimes public pressure and the pressure from your colleagues gets too great, and you become ineffective in the job that you hold. I think if you ask me what's ultimately going to happen, he likely will step down.
Let's listen to the pressure applied by Governor Lee late this week when it comes to this issue. Real quick, what he had to say.
If at this point Glenn Casada were a member of your administration or an executive at your company, would you call for him to step down? Would you ask him to resign?
I would.
Very short answer to kind of paint him to say it to Juan, but when the governor says that, I don't know how you have
That's why I think it's over. I think it's over because you will have other Republicans following suit to privately talk to him and let him know that the arrogance of power has to stop here. And there are even some criminal liabilities here with the altering of emails. So I don't think you can play with this, and I think we have to watch. Public service is just that. It's not your right. The people entrusted their care in you, and when you violate that, you have to answer to that. So either they'll have to encourage him to step down, or the voters we'll look at some of these.
Well, we know Republicans are meeting next week. Lawmakers are going to gather the Republican caucus and probably at least, can they remove him of his speakership at least, even if he doesn't resign from his House seat?
They could remove him from the speakership.
Would you expect that to happen? Do you think there's enough momentum behind it?
I think they should. I really do. I don't think you can play with public trust. And who wants to go back to your county and talk about this issue rather than the issues that are before you that benefit your constituents?
Now, let's talk about the perhaps illegal arm twisting that may have been going on for the school voucher bill. Do you think there's anything to that now that we know the FBI might be snooping around asking questions?
Well, you know, I don't know if there's anything to it, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And, you know, if Quesada went to some of his legislative colleagues in an attempt to get this school voucher bill passed and said, look, I'll trade you, I'll make sure that you get XYZ bill passed that you're backing if you give your vote over here. Well, that's the normal horse trading, the give and take of legislation.
I was going to say, where do you draw the line on that? Because that happens all the time.
But yeah, it does happen all the time. But if he offered something else, something more tangible, something to directly benefit a legislator, like a trip to the Caribbean or whatever, I have no idea, then he crosses the line. It depends what was on the table to get them to switch their vote.
All right. Well, we know that's being looked into. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about a couple other scandals that are brewing right now. We'll be right back.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment. Every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
All right, boys, time for bed. Listen to your mom, knuckleheads. Hand them over.
Hand what over?
Video games, whatever you got.
Let's go. You can watch videos of people playing video games in the morning.
Is that everything? I can see who's online.
I'm gonna sweep the sofa fort. Well, look what I found.
Take control of your Wi-Fi with Xfinity X5.
Let's roll.
Now that's simple, easy, awesome. Get started with Xfinity Internet and TV for $40 a month for 12 months. Plus, upgrade to get more than double the speed. Click, call, or visit a store today.
Nausea, you may be dealing with migraines. Many new options are being researched to help prevent these types of headaches. Call Dr. Laura McGill at CNS Healthcare to see if one of the new options available are right for you. Someone is available now to take your call and schedule an appointment right away. As always, our services are completely free. Call 901-843-1045 before the next headache strikes.
Selfless service is the principle that guides Army National Guard soldiers to be ready whenever disaster strikes. They have a stake in the well-being of the neighborhoods where they live and work. They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times. Selfless service. It's what inspires the men and women of the Army National Guard to be part of something greater than themselves. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
All right, we're back to talk about a couple more scandals. First, let's talk about Judge Jim Lambie, the Shelby County Commission voting this week that they would like to see him reprimanded, at least by his higher-ups, if not removed from office. And the vote was 10-3, I believe, on the Shelby County Commission. He's a criminal court judge, and he posted on Facebook several things that have stirred some controversy. Things that most would interpret as anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim, some memes and some conspiracy theories that might raise some eyebrows, and they feel like that's not proper for a judge to be doing that. Well, others say, well, that's just free speech and we're making too much of it. We'll let you take this one first, Susan.
Well, free speech or no free speech, he's a jurist, and he should know better. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he too should resign. And if he doesn't resign and he decides to run for office in a few years, right now people are already lining up for his post, for his seat. I think it was absolutely bad judgment, wrong. He should never have done that. It was offensive to me. It was offensive to a lot of people I know. And I'm going to tell you something. If I were a defense attorney and I came into his court and I was assigned to his courtroom, I would ask for him to recuse himself every single time, because no one could feel like they could get a fair trial if they were Muslim, if they were black, if they were Jewish or whatever. I would recuse I would have my client recused from his court.
It would be hard to be on the other side of his bench as a defendant and believe you're getting a fair trial.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's made himself null and void based on that. Susan is absolutely right. He should go fast and in a hurry, fast and furious in a hurry. He was wrong. I don't care what you say about his free speech. He serves the public. Everybody who goes before that court expects to be treated fairly and with dignity. And he did not show that he has a respect for all people in those emails.
If he had said that inside the confines of his courtroom, then very few people would have heard it, and it may have died on the vine then. It would have been as terrible then as it... But it's worse that he sticks it on social media for the rest of the world to see, and now we all know. What kind of judgment is that from a judge?
Well, plus we've seen teachers, we've seen cops and deputies, we've seen news anchors all lose their jobs for things they've posted on social media that showed in the public position they're in some impartiality from a position where that's expected.
Well, I am convinced people need a one-on-one on social media, what's appropriate and not appropriate.
Well, I didn't elect you to your position here. And I didn't elect, well, I did vote for you. I hope I did.
Sorry about that.
But anyway, what I
really
want
is you take on a certain position no matter what it is, and there's responsibility.
We elected him as a judge, and we expect him to behave as a judge. And you know, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And he put such a black eye on the judiciary. He should have at least enough respect for his colleagues to say, at least come out and say I was wrong.
Now let's talk about the Shelby County Democratic Party. Michael Harris is the current chairman as we sit here today, and we know there's going to be a meeting upcoming in a couple weeks to talk about his future in light of new revelations that he declared bankruptcy 8 times over the course of a year between May of 2016 and May of 2017. Now, when they elected him, when Democrats elected him last month, they already knew that his law license had been suspended, but they overlooked that, and he became chairman. And then we've learned about the new revelations, and apparently now the state party is being asked to get involved and see if he should keep his position as chairman of the Democratic Party. Tawana, I would be remiss not to let you have this one first.
Well, I want to start off by saying all 3 of these examples to me are examples of arrogance of power. And somehow we have lost the greater good, stepping aside for the greater good. And this situation, the party needs a chairman to be able to organize Democrats, to be able to motivate, organize Democrats, raise funds, motivate Democrats, raise funds, get out the vote, raise funds. Did I say raise funds?
Right.
You need to be trustworthy if you're going to raise funds.
Well, when you say that Mr. Harris declared bankruptcy 8 times, that's 4 more times than Donald Trump. So, I mean, they really don't have...
At least he spread it out over more time.
Yeah, that's true. No, the Democratic...
And I don't want the bar to be that low.
The Democratic Party has had some good leaders over time, but the majority of their leaders have been weak. Some have gotten in a lot of trouble. Michael Harris doesn't look like he's going to be one of these strong leaders. You know, what's the old saying? If you give 10 Democrats 10 guns and you ask them to form a firing squad, they're going to get into a circle. That's exactly what's going on here too. And it's unfortunate for the Democratic Party, because last year with Corey Strong as a leader of the party, he rode the wave of the anti-Trump wave here, but he was able to organize, he was able to raise money, and he really swept Democrats into office. That's what a good leader can do. But if a leader of a party doesn't have the backing of all of its rank and file, he's in trouble. I think Mr. Harris needs to reassess his position with the party.
And those who voted for Mr. Harris will probably be the best people to get with him quietly in a room and talk. How are we going to unify this party? How are you going to raise money? How are you going to organize for get out the vote with a splendid party? And how are we going to win?
If a party doesn't have if a party doesn't have a strong leader, that party becomes irrelevant during an election. And Shelby County needs a 2-strong party system, and I would hope the Democrats, the Democratic Party and the people who are involved in the Democratic Party can see that.
And that's nothing against, I'm not trying to deal with his infractions. I'm trying to deal with the greater good here for the party.
Well, you see this People's Convention being formed, and that has nothing to do with the party. I mean, this is an offshoot of people who don't feel like they're part of the mainstream of the party. So I think that, and that in and of itself could be a little bit showing the weakness of a centralized Democratic Party.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask one more question about Steve Cohen, if we can. Steve Cohen, let's watch his comments at the Judiciary Committee this week when they had to decide whether the Congress would vote to hold the Attorney General of the United States in contempt of Congress.
And if it weren't for him being president, he'd be in prison with Michael Cohen today as individual one, and he obstructed justice as the Mueller report says it so. We are in danger. We need to respond, and we need to act for the people of the United States of America.
A decidedly different tone from the congressman, and that's what hit me, because just last week we were talking about whether it was appropriate for him to bring KFC to the committee hearing. This time you saw a lot more passion and a lot more seriousness.
Well, you saw the very serious side of Steve Cohen in this one. On last week with the fried chicken, you saw the glib and fun side of Steve. I think this one came across to his party much more seriously than what he did the week before. But I thought that he spoke very well, and I think he represented his constituents very well.
I think this side of Steve Cohen is the side that I voted for, because he was serious. He was about the business. He was emphatic, and he got his point across. That foolishness last week, I did not like at all. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I thought it was beneath the dignity of the office that he holds in Congress. But he is a brilliant man when he puts his mind to it, and he did that.
You'd like to see more of that?
I'd like to see more of that.
Well, sadly, most people will not remember his good words this week, but they will remember that bucket of
because they were busy laughing.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We'll be back. Coming up, we have an interview, one-on-one interview with the Bartlett Mayor, Keith McDonald. He's here in the studio. He'll be joining us next.
It's the Great Outdoor Sale at Family Leisure.
Patio furniture, chat height to bar height, and everything in between. 4-piece sets only $7.99. Chase lounges starting at $99. Fire pits also starting at $99. Grills, smokers, and more. The Great Outdoor Sale going on now at Family Leisure.
Have a car? A title? You could get up to $6,500 with Title Max. Go to TitleMax.com and enter your car year, make, and model. See how much you could get. Check out TitleMax.com for the most cash you need. Check out TitleMax.com and shop us for rates. Check out TitleMax.com. All credit types accepted. Find out why so many people say,
I got my title back with Title Max.
I got my title back with Title Max.
Get your title back with Title Max.
Fast cash under your nose to blind you to the fact that they are stealing your rights forever. Don't you let them do that to you. You need to get somebody who's not afraid to stand up and fight for you to get you every dollar you deserve. Pick up the phone and call me now. JMB. I love a good fight. 888-WE-FIGHT.
I don't even recognize you anymore.
Who are you?
I can't stay mad at you.
Origami is about all you can do with a dollar these days. Until now, because Wendy's dollar deals are back with all this deliciousness. Like the crispy chicken, 4 nuggets, and the new bacon cheeseburger melt. Get more for your dollar at Wendy's today.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Back for our one-on-one segment, and at least once a month I like to bring in one of our mayors, one of our suburban mayors, maybe Shelby County mayor, Memphis mayor. We try to keep it all mixed up, but just to talk about what's going on in their community. And I'm very happy today to have the mayor of Bartlett, Keith McDonald, is here. Thank you so much for coming.
Great
we appreciate it. Gosh, I feel like you've been the mayor of Bartlett for a long time.
I have been for a long time.
I think I've had 2 or 3 jobs at different TV stations.
17th year.
Okay. Good for you. So Bartlett's one of those communities that, you know, typically suburban communities are kind of quiet. They're bedroom communities, not even a lot going on in their politics. Bartlett's been able to hold on to that. You know, Arlington, Germantown, Lakeland, not so lucky, but things seem to be running pretty smoothly there in Bartlett. What do you attribute that to, besides yourself?
Well, no, yeah, and it's not just me. I mean, it's a great team of people. It takes a great team of people, and I've been really blessed to have good people working with me, alongside of me, both in elected positions as well as in those that I appoint or employ. They're just really good people. They come in, you know, our motto is meet the need and exceed the expectation. And we talk about that all the way through the organization, and we praise people on the basis of those kinds of things. And so having that sense that you're making a difference, whether you're on the sanitation crew, and we get more compliments on them than the firemen or policemen.
That's one of your more important jobs, is making sure that trash gets picked up.
We get good notes on them all the time.
That's good. All right, so lots going on with schools in Bartlett. We'll talk about 2 or 3 of the highlights. We're talking during the break about TCAT is one example, where you're going to now be able to have a facility to educate kids out of high school. 18 months later, they graduate with a certification or degree that will allow them to get a high-paying job.
Yeah, yeah. So currently, we're in a dual enrollment program that we kind of did as a pilot, which has been very successful, where our young people can be involved and get certification in their studies in the high school. And we have one of our faculty has gone over the TCAT and gotten involved in their curriculum and learned how to teach so that they can continue on when they finish. And go to, right now, the campus on Alabama Street, not too far from St. Jude. Well, what we determined several years ago was, when you look at Fayette County, Tipton County, a lot of places, getting into Memphis and traffic and getting out of it, if you lived in all of those areas, just took a lot of time and discouraged a lot of people, even though it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful campus over there. We believe we're going to have a beautiful campus too. It's not about that, it's accessibility, and we'll have a little bit more accessibility to the people on the northeastern side headed towards the river.
I know you're a big backer of public education. What were your thoughts on this school voucher bill? I know most suburbs, I think every suburb, in fact, not to mention Memphis and Shelby County, stated their opposition to it. I think every school board member. Yet there is a lawmaker from Bartlett, I don't have to tell you, who you supported, Tom Leatherwood, who was one of the crucial votes in support of school vouchers. What are your thoughts about how that played out?
Well, I had a discussion or two with him and with our Senator Paul Rose. I really felt like if they felt that they were inclined, at the very least, they should send it to TASER, which is a study group full of some really brilliant minds, because there's so many unintended consequences that the educators and the communities have warned them about. I know the governor ran on this. I like the governor, but I don't think that what we received, in fact, I don't think it'll withstand a constitutional test. I speak from experience. We got a law passed up there so that we could have municipal schools in Shelby County, only Shelby County, and it got turned down by the federal court.
Let's explain that, because the court determined you can't have a law apply to just one county. It's got to apply to everybody.
Exactly.
And the school voucher bill only applies to 2 counties.
Exactly. So I don't think it'll withstand the judicial study that it will have. But even if it does, I don't think it'll do what everybody hoped it will do. I think there's too many opportunities for abuse, but that's not the biggest problem. The people who it might most likely help still don't have everything they need. Just because you can pay your $7,200 or whatever that number turns out to be, and I give it to you because you're MUS or CBHS, that still doesn't get me to your school. That still doesn't pay for the after-school activities. So,
or transportation to get there?
Absolutely. And so I don't think it's a well thought out situation, but we'll see how the courts deal with it, and then we'll go from there.
We've only got about 90 seconds left, and I want to make sure we talk about parks, because I know you're excited about some of the things Bartlett is doing there.
Oh, yeah.
What are you most excited about?
Well, Freeman Park, a lot of people call it Bartlett Park because they don't know any better, but it's the big park as you're coming in off of Bartlett Boulevard. It had been developed, only 1/3 of it had been developed for many decades. We've now expanded over the other side, opened another 3 fields, a lot more parking, some beautiful walkways. We're going to be expanding in the back of that to have some Frisbee golf and some of the playground equipment like they've got out at Shelby Farms where you can climb the ladders. And so there's so much. We've got a pavilion that'll be up front with restrooms so we can bring our farmers market from the back of the park up to the front where people can see it on Saturdays. So there's so many wonderful things. If you go see our new high school, a lot of people built high schools. We're redoing a high school in place. I'd encourage you to go on Facebook on Built in Bartlett, and you can see the drone's view of what's going on right there while kids are in class. It's amazing what that school is going to look like.
Well, all good things going on right now between schools which are consistently ranked up there, your park system. People want that kind of quality of life, so continued success to you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
And glad you got over your little health condition early and you were able to be on. You don't know this, but he had to cancel a couple times because he had some heart issues, but you're doing better now.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thanks for being here, and we'll be back to wrap things up right after this.
A drunk driver hit us head on. I am so glad that one of my family members told me to call the Reeves Law Firm. The jury awarded us $1.8 million.
If you or a loved one have been seriously injured, call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
Hello, I'm Richard Ransom, inviting Local 24 viewers to join me on a Canadian Rockies train adventure September 9th to the 18th. Witness the beauty of Banff National Park and take the Columbia Icefield Glacier Experience Tour. Enjoy stunning scenery aboard Via Rails Canadian as we travel from Jasper to Vancouver and then tour breathtaking Butchart Gardens and visit Victoria. All airfare, great hotels, and more included. For more information, call Holiday Vacations at 1-800-826-2266.
I'm Local 24 meteorologist Chelsea Chandler. Before you get your kids ready for school each day, make sure you catch my bus stop forecast so they're prepared throughout the day. It's weekdays on Good Day Memphis, 5 to 7.
The bus stop forecast on Good Day Memphis is brought to you by NST.
Serving part-time as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you a head start on your career. Gain practical experience with technology and equipment to get an edge in the civilian world. Learn about the paid training and career opportunities available to you at NationalGuard.com.
A drunk driver hit us head on. I am so glad that one of my family members told me to call the Reeves Law Firm. The jury awarded us $1.8 million.
If you or a loved one have been seriously injured, call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
He's a veteran journalist with over 43 years of experience. Former managing editor of the Commercial Appeal. Chair of Excellence at the University of Memphis, a member of the Tennessee Journalism Hall of Fame, author of a book about how race changed Memphis politics, and local television political analyst and commentator, Otis Sanford, now with Richard Ransom and Katina Rankin. Get his point of view weeknights on Local 24 News at 5.
Love for you to weigh in on the broadcast today. All you have to do is send me an email at rransom@localmemphis.com. Again, that's rransom@localmemphis.com. My thanks to all my guests today, Susan Adler-Thorpe, Tawan Stout-Mitchell, and Bartlett Mayor Keith McDonald for being here. And my thanks to you as well. We always appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Remember, Local 24 this week now on twice on Sundays at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. We'll see you next time.
Elegance Vodka is the luxurious